Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Vegan Tour Guide Podcast with your host, Mike Knight, where we'll bring you great information about a vegan plant-based diet. It doesn't matter if you've been vegan for years, part-time vegan, or just gathering more information. This podcast is for you. Thanks again for joining, and let's get today's tour started.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Vegan Tour Guide Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Knight, and I hope you're having a phenomenal start to your day. Thanks so much for tuning in. For all the repeat listeners, thanks so much for coming back and rejoining again. And thanks so much for helping spread the message to everybody about the Vegan Tour Guide at vegantourguide.com. And for those of you first-timers, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm sure you'll get a lot of great information about this podcast, plus the other ones that you can find, on iTunes, Stitcher, and of course at the website, vegantourguide.com as well. As the goal is always to educate and inform and just bring you knowledge and information about plant-based and vegan and everything that is lifestyle, converting to it, whether you're just gathering information right now, brand new, or somewhere in between, been doing it for a while, it doesn't matter. This is for you. So, speaking of what we've got for you today, we have Luke and Emilie Tang. They are going to bring you a lot of knowledge. Both of them bring very interesting backgrounds because you've got Luke, an accomplished, bodybuilder, before he went plant-based and all like that, and still after. But he's going to tell you about his transformation and, of course, the big role that Miss Emilie played in that. And you hear about Emilie and her background as, a very accomplished short-track speed skater. And I'm also going to give you a spoiler alert because we always want to know about, people we hear about plant-based and, after they make the transformation, how that helps them, in their endurance, their physical attributes, their health and everything. So here's a little spoiler alert you're going to have to listen to. Pay attention as to how many months after having their baby, Emilie goes and does an ultra marathon. And remember the ultras? The word ultra is in front of marathon for a reason because it's way longer than even a normal marathon. So check that out. But they really do. They bring a lot of great information. I mean, working out, dietary, even some information about projects they've got going on that you can take a look at. So sit back, relax, get ready to take lots of notes. And here we have Luke and Emilie.
So I've got my wife here, Emilie, just next to me.
Hey, Emilie.
Hi.
Well, welcome to the Vegan Tour Guide. I appreciate both of y'all coming on.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Well,
love what you do.
Well, thank you. Matter of fact, I was just hanging out with Ronnie yesterday.
Oh, fantastic! Ronnie's a cool guy.
Yeah.
Like he's been an absolute star just throughout the whole journey, really.
Well, he is. He's a rock star. I love hanging out and brainstorming with him. And I tell you, I mean, speaking of journeys, I think that's what I'd love to just jump right into. I mean,
yeah,
both of you. Good gracious. I mean, we'll get into all that y'all done. It may be easier in life to describe what the two of y'all haven't done. I mean, when I tell people, and I'm going to put it in the show notes and all y'all's bios, wow. And so I'd love to, kind of go back for some of my listeners. My listeners are varied. Some of them, have been, plant-based vegan for a while. Some are plant-based vegan athletes. So both of you will obviously resonate with them right out of the get-go. But then some aren't. Some are just doing research and just getting in. So I'd love if both of y'all don't mind, just tell your story, kind of, what led you to plant-based and kind of, what got us just to kind of, the start.
For sure. I guess I'll let Emilie start speaking first because she was the one that really got me onto the bandwagon. So I really have to thank her for it.
All right. I'll try and make a long story short. So I'm born and raised in Montreal, Canada. So east coast of Canada, nice. Freezing. So I've never really liked meat. So I remember from the photo, my mom even tells me that when I was a baby, she had to hide my meat in my potatoes so I would eat it. So I remember when I was young as well, I've always loved cooking. And I've always said to my parents, when I'm gonna grow up, I'm gonna be a vegetarian. Because I really dislike meat, so I was always cooking tofu dishes for my parents. And back then tofu was like, it was pretty French, So I was making these tofu stir fries and these tofu bakes for my parents and everything. And I at some point I said to my dad that I was gonna stop eating meat, but he said I was gonna die if I was not gonna eat, if I stopped eating meat. So I kept on going, and I was also an athlete. So I speed skated for Canada for 10 years. I was on the national team, the junior national team, and everything.
Whoa.
Yes. So I had a coach as well that told me that I had to eat, same again. He said tofu was not a real protein. I had to eat horse meat because that was the best meat for an athlete. So horse meat, because they run fast. So if you eat.
You're going to run skate as fast. That makes sense.
It just makes sense. It's just, that logic. So, I was in a world, and there was always like the speed. They were always having this story of that speed skater who became vegetarian and her performance went down. And when she started eating meat again, then her performance went back up, and it's just, there was always this kind of stuff, and it was it was frowned upon. So, I went on, and then when I quit skating when I was about 20, I tried going pescatarian, so just vegetarian with fish. But again, I was in a really bad lifestyle, so I was like drinking a lot because I was working in bars and that kind of stuff. So it ended up I just ended up saying it doesn't work. So then I moved to Australia on my own, just like that, just for fun, just with my backpack and a working holiday visa when I was about 23.
Wow.
And then, just like that. And then naturally I was eating very little meat. I was nothing. I was not a pescatarian, not a vegetarian, but I was just naturally just eating the way I felt like. So it was very little meat. And then eventually I met Luke, and Luke was a full-blown fitness industry guy,
high protein,
low carb bodybuilder. So I wanted to show him that I was, I could be a good wife, I can cook for you, blah blah blah. And then I had to cook a lot of meat, so naturally my diet adapted to his. And started eating a lot of meat. So we were on these I wouldn't say ketogenic, but it was
bread. We woke up and had a steak
for breakfast
at 6 a.m.
It was just horrible. So I think I'm thankful for that, because it really I had started having pretty bad digestion in my late teens. And then it just got really bad. Just the fact that I was eating so much meat, which naturally I was not attracted to. Every single meal I was stressed because I knew that I was gonna have major stomach aches, and I would feel bloated and have gas and that kind of stuff. And then I was going through bouts of diarrhea, then being constipated, and I was just really uncomfortable overall. So at some point I was just that's enough. I just cannot live like that. It was making me depressed and everything. So I looked into it, and I was taking also all kinds of supplements. It was costing us hundreds a month of HCl to digest better and that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
So then I started researching, and then I fell into I saw things about a plant-based diet, a vegan diet, and I bought the book from John Robbins, Food Revolution. And then I read that, and it just made sense, and started watching YouTube videos about it. And I fell onto, back then, Duran Ryder was he's Australian, he was very well known. And to me, it just made sense. And the day I cut out, I decided that I was going to cut out meat and dairy. I thought I was going to keep eggs because, vegan is extreme and I can keep eggs.
Uh-huh.
But then the day after, I think I had an omelet the day after, and I just didn't feel good. So I was just you know what, let's cut out everything. And I would say overnight, I started feeling results. I was not bloated anymore after meals. I didn't have pain. I was just so full of energy. I was it's the kind of depression lifted, the feeling that that I was always depressed just lifted. Yeah, it was kind of miraculous. So I was just nah, I just cannot look back. But then at the same time, I was just Oh, well, I'm with somebody who eats a kilo of meat a week. So not a week, sorry, a day. So I was like, what am I doing? So I was just like, and we just got engaged. So I was like, will that break us? But I was decided I was not going to force him into it. So I just I just went on and I was like, look, I'll keep on helping you cook your meat or whatever, but I'm just not going to have it. But then he can go on about what happened with his journey, but it was not long after me that he decided to make the change as well.
Aha! Yes. All right.
So definitely, I mean, like Emilie really inspired me on my journey, and just looking at her change really in a matter of days, just like made me think. And she shared with me the book by Food Revolutions, and I read John Robbins' work and absolutely loved the book. And it just, like Emilie said, it really made sense. I mean, from an environmental, from an ethical, from a health standpoint, it just, like, why wouldn't you? So I just got quite interested into it. And then at that time, she shared with me the book by Robert Cheek, Vegan Bodybuilding and Fitness. And I think in a way she wanted me to show that.
I ordered a bunch of, when I got really motivated, I ordered a bunch of books, and I just wanted to show him that, hey, there's actually like people to do it on a vegan diet.
So yeah, being a bodybuilder right then, having like a kilo of meat, fish, poultry, whatever you call it, a day, I was just like, all right, I was still a little bit confused, but at the same time, very curious. So, but around that same time, after reading those books, I was still quite interested. But one of my friends actually introduced me told me, I was sharing with her about my journey, and she said, look, you should check out Earthlings. It really opened my eyes on certain things. And I was just like, okay, Earthlings is just another documentary. And I love documentaries. So I watched Earthlings, and it was horrific. I mean, me and Emilie was crying the whole time. And I was just absolutely horrified at what actually happened. And it's just, all my life I was suffering from my own cognitive dissonance. And it's just, I suddenly just woke up. So the moment I finished that film, the next day I just decided that I was going to go vegan overnight. So that night the penny really dropped, and I was like, I'm done with meat. I remember saying that.
Yeah, you said I'm done. I'm done participating to that. I'm done eating animals.
Yeah. Pretty much overnight, I said, I'm done eating animals. So I remember I was a personal trainer back then, and I was at back of the locker room with all those gym boys and fitness buffs guys, and I was there sitting with my little Tupperware with probably about 700 grams of tofu, because that's what I knew. I was like, all right, well let's go for 1 kilo of tofu and maybe 1 kilo of beans.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, I just went literally just swap my proteins. And to be honest, like I actually felt pretty bloated for the first couple of months, but in that sense, I just knew I wanted to make it work. Then I tried like reading and researching more about the diet. I tried different things, and back then in 2010, I competed as a natural bodybuilder. And after a few months of research, and really, I was really inspired as well. I think around the same time Plantbased started.
No, 2010 you competed, you were still eating meat.
Yeah, 2010, but 2000, I think I turned vegan about 2012. Yeah, 2012. But towards the end after about a year turning vegan, 2013, I vowed that I wanted to stand on stage again as a vegan. So that was my goal, not only to just show that this was a lifestyle that I could survive on, but I could thrive and perform on. Because being an ex-bodybuilder, like, okay, well, I'm going to do it as a vegan bodybuilder now. So around the same time, I started Evolve Generation with a bunch of my close, I think Simone, close friends who were also competing, and Emilie was competing as fitness model back then. Bikini.
Yeah, I did one bikini comp.
Yeah, you did
just to realize that really it isn't for me.
Really so exactly. So it wasn't for her, but we did it together, which was pretty cool. Yeah. And I formed Evolve Generation, and Evolve Generation really just evolved into we spoke at vegan events. We had fitness zone at World Vegan Day a little bit later. And it was just bringing the community together to advocate a healthy, plant-based or vegan lifestyle. So really, with Evolve Generation, it was kind of inspired by Plantbased, who's really the sister team of what Evolve is. We are the sister team of what Plantbased is in the US. But yeah, it's just, from competing to creating community with Evolve Generation, and then I moved into entrepreneurship, and as an entrepreneur, I decided to publish a book and write a book on all what I've discovered in my own transformation and what I've discovered because I did the course in plant-based nutrition with E. Cornell, and it was just really it just made sense from so many standpoints. So I really wanted to share my story and share the information that I've learned. Published a book, and fast forward to competing when
so basically going vegan just influenced you, the whole story.
Influenced my whole journey from being an athlete to becoming an entrepreneur, and also competing with Plantbased in the US twice. I competed in 2013 in 2015
just now
2015 as a bodybuilder, and 2017 as a CrossFitter. And since then, I've just been I've experienced tremendous performance. My performance has literally increased significantly as an athlete. So I mean, from CrossFit to obstacle races, now I'm going into gymnastics. And Emilie is now an ultra endurance runner, and she's going to be running her 100K in New Zealand after.
So next month
after a little girl has been born, and just about 4 or 5 months ago I ran the PlantFit Summit, and it was just so amazing to speak to people like inspirations like obviously Robert Cheek, Colin Campbell, Dr. Neil Bernard. Met Dr. Neil Bernard, and it all started from just deciding not to eat meat. And now speaking to you with this opportunity as well. And I think for me, my goal is really to help other people. What we are passionate about is helping others and inspiring other people to be champions of their faith, whether it's becoming fitter, becoming stronger, becoming healthier, or living a life of purpose. But it all comes down to what you eat. And now, for us as parents, to our little girl, Sienna, who's vegan, she's 100% plant-based. We want to be an inspiration in that sense to show that, you can actually bring up a child on a 100% plant-based diet, a vegan diet. And she is extremely active, extremely healthy, very bright. And she's 9 months, and she's way ahead of her milestones, crawling and walking, and she's never sick. So yeah, I think that's our story in a little bit of a nutshell.
That is awesome. I mean, you two stay very busy. I mean, you dove straight in, which is so admirable. I mean, I love looking at it again. And I tell everybody we're going to have, like I said, your bios, but you both definitely from your bios and listen to you, you love knowledge is what I'm definitely gathering from both of you.
Yeah, for sure. I think knowledge is power. Knowledge is strength, and knowledge is being able to have a debate with someone, or also have the knowledge to help someone as well. Because obviously there's a lot of naysayers out there that say, you need this, you need animal protein, plant protein is not complete, and it's you do need this and you do need that. But to have the knowledge to say, no, you don't actually need to. And
to be also able to walk the walk, walk the talk. It's so much easier to advocate for something when you're actually smashing goals. I remember my mother-in-law's mom and her friends started really looking at us when I ran my first 100K. They was like, okay, this has to work. This has to be good because she just ran 100K.
And just to add, her very first 100K, which is a North Face 100K, she was 6'6" female. And that was her first 100K. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Wow.
I'm so proud of her. I mean, she ran it in 13 hours. It
was the Hong Kong 100. It was a really, really, really trail race. It's one of the major ultras, and it's just all I did is just train hard and just ate the way I felt. I don't calculate my macros. I just eat the way I feel, and recovery is just so much quicker, because I can compare. I was an athlete before being plant-based and now, and recovery is just insane.
Well, yeah, speak to that a little bit about what you ate, because I love hearing that, because I've interviewed several people that do endurance, that transitioned over, and I've heard that common theme, but I'd love for you, like you said, to kind of do the before plant-based and now, like you said, that recovery. And also, if you don't mind, maybe a little bit about what you eat, just for people out there listening that maybe want to, shift to more, athletic endurance things.
Yeah. So I can compare. So I didn't mention it in my story because I wanted to keep it short, but, I quit speed skating at 20. But then when I moved to Australia, I gave it another shot and skated for Australia for a couple of years. And I was about 25 back then. Started skating again, and I was eating like a high carb, low fat, high protein, low carb diet, and it was just horrible. But I was putting that on the fault that because I'm old. It's 25. It's so old. But yeah. so I just my recovery was awful. Like I was waking up in the morning feeling sick, on the ice feeling completely sick, no energy, and I was just wondering why. But I was following a low carb diet because I wanted to be leaner on stronger,
be lighter, stronger,
and I've never struggled with my weight. Like I've always been a pretty thin person, but I needed to to be optimal. I needed to lose maybe 2 or 3 kilos, or about 5-6 pounds, and I was just trying really hard, and and I felt like we were just looking at my diet and we're like, maybe those 50 grams of carbs that you're eating are maybe too much. Maybe we should cut down.
Were just tweaking every single thing that we could.
And it was just so painful and everything. And when I went vegan, I think I probably dropped those 3 kilos like this without even trying. As I said, when I started running, I was already vegan, because I think it's the story for everyone. A lot of people, when they go vegan, they have to they just have this extra energy that they need to spend, so they take up a sport. And for me, it was really endurance running, because I'd always loved running. So to me, it was just natural. So I tried a lot of types of on my vegan journey, I've tried a lot of types of diets. I went raw for 2 years, completely raw. It worked until it didn't work anymore. But I feel like it really healed all my digestive problems and everything. And then before I got pregnant, I was quite high carbs. So most of what, I was eating a lot of pasta, rice. I was keeping everything whole grains, but I was quite high carb. And then throughout my pregnancy, I naturally craved more protein. So, tempeh, beans, tofu, legumes and everything. And it's stayed like that, probably because I'm still breastfeeding. So I believe I just really go with what my body wants. So I really can tap into if tonight I just felt like it's just basically just feeling, what do I feel like? I feel like rice and veggies. That's what I'm gonna have. I just really trust my body, and even throughout my pregnancy, I never calculated my protein intake and everything, even though I knew it was important, because I trusted my body so much in craving what I needed.
I love that you say that, because so many people, and different people, different things for them. But I think a lot of people do sometimes, especially when they transition and all, they get so worried about counting everything. Should I do 12 of these and 14 of these? And I love that you said, and obviously with your success and what you've done, I love that, because you backed it up, that a lot of it is listening to your body and listening to what feels right, and not worried about that as much. So thank you for bringing that up, because I love the listeners hearing that, because again, I get asked that all the time. They're like, all right, well, when I transition, how many grams per day? How much of this per day per body weight? And if I want to reach this, and so thank you so much for bringing that up.
And I mean, I know it can be important at the beginning to count in a way that to get enough, because a lot of people fall off the wagon in a plant-based diet because they don't eat enough. Because it's really easy to not eat enough because plant-based food is less dense calorically. And especially if you're doing endurance running and everything, maybe at the beginning, just know that you're eating enough. But apart from that, I think that's all. Like you should really trust that your body knows best.
Gotcha. Now let me ask you. Now, granted, going off of that, and I know we said kind of listen to our body and not. We don't have to dial it down too much, but I'm wondering, with endurance and all, is there anything specific? Any kind of you're like, well, I found these foods do help me with endurance. Like, do you ramp up anything certain prior to a race? Like a week before or something, or do you kind of have a steady, consistent diet? I'm curious about that with you.
For example, there's one thing, like for long races, I'll taper down the fibers a few days before a race, just for obvious reasons. You don't want to be heavy, and you don't want to have to go often during the race. Apart from that as well, I will concentrate a little more on carbohydrates the week before a race.
Okay.
But I'll still go by what I feel. I've discovered lately, I've been playing, like I'm not a big person on supplements because I took so much before going vegan.
Yeah.
I just really all I take is a multivitamin because, as I said, because I'm breastfeeding. But I've discovered mushrooms. The properties of mushrooms like cordyceps and chaga, and so I've been using that a little bit. So I found that really works. So they do the coffee, the mushroom coffee, and I've been like for example, the last race that I ran was the Singapore Marathon, and I had cordyceps because they say it boosts endurance, and so I had that before the marathon, and I really find that it maybe it's totally a placebo effect. But it really helps, and I've got chaga as well that I use for 2 months. The 2 months before the marathon, and it felt like everyone was sick. I was having everyone was having flu, cold, everything. And I've just been really taking my chaga a drink at night, and I felt it really, really boosted my immune system. So just little things like that I've been using to tweak a little bit.
I know that you have a little bit of a routine and kind of basically a routine like the night before to have certain foods. Do you actually carb load?
I don't carb load per se, but I like to eat. Like I've got a few recipes that I like making the day before a race. But I used to be very stiff about it, very this needs to be, but. Sometimes you need to travel for a race or whatever, and you need to understand that, you might not have the food that you usually have. So I've just learned to be a little more flexible. But the night before, as I said, I'll try to have something that is not too heavy in fiber, that is mostly carb based. And the morning before, the morning of the race, I usually have either porridge or toast with usually in this house we eat a lot of peanut butter, so probably go through 3 jars a week. So there will be peanut butter on there, and then throughout the race I use Tailwind, which is basically a mix of carbohydrates, salt, electrolytes, and it's mixed with water. And that does the trick for me, or gels as well, depending on the kind of race. And that's about it.
Okay. All right. So, Luke.
Yes.
All right. I mean, when do you find time to do things? I mean, you've got so many certifications and things you've done. I mean, I'm like, hey, not only all this, but you train people in NLP. I mean, I love it. I mean, I'm looking at all this because I love NLP. That's something I even want to talk to you about offline. But I mean, going down everything you do, let's start with, again, when you train people, because especially, we're all talking here, the 1st of 2018, we all know how it is. People start making changes and hey, love that because we'd love to see more people making these positive changes to, plant-based vegan. And so maybe where do you start people? All right, we got a newbie. What are some advice maybe we're starting a newbie out on that wants to reach the levels that you and Emilie have? But, they got to, hey, like we talked with your little one earlier, they got to crawl before they walk. So where do we start out? What are some ideas?
I think it really is where the person's at as well, because some people can jump head first and say, look, I want to go all in. Some people I just want to dip my toes. So I need to see where the person's at and what their motivations are. If their motivations are, for example, ethical, then it's just like, all right, we just need to kind of clean up your diet and see what you're doing, because a vegan diet that doesn't necessarily mean a healthy diet. So, I mean, a vegan doesn't mean whole food plant-based. So really depends on where the person's at. So I would say it's quite individual, but it's really trying to meet the person's where they're at and trying to make small steps. And I believe in not exclusion, but addition, meaning that you focus on what you're adding into your diet versus excluding. Because when you actually start putting more good stuff in your nutrition, the bad stuff is definitely going to go out. So I guess I need to look at the first thing. What's the worst thing that the person's doing right now? If they're having a lot of, for example, lattes a week, maybe what we could do to make it accessible is to maybe, instead of having a latte with milk, maybe have it with soy milk or almond milk instead. Make that change there. So if that's that person that's just wanting to dip their toes, all right, I can't go plant-based overnight, but let's just take it a step at a time, and then maybe start having one plant-based meal a week or a day or whatever. Start with something that they can do, and maybe I always say start with a good breakfast. It could be something that they like. It could be oats. It could even be pancakes. I mean, we go on forks over knives. There's pancakes, there's waffles. The thing about a plant-based diet, I believe, is that you can have your cake and eat it too, pretty much. When people crave, I'm being high protein, low carb before. When I crave foods, I'm craving foods like high carb. Well, now I know it's more high fat, but like things like pancakes, things like chocolate, things like sweets, donuts. I mean, back in the day, I used to think it was carbs, but really it's predominantly fat and animal fat. But you can have all of that and still be healthy, which is the great thing about a plant-based diet. But yeah, back to your question, is really starting where the person's at. But let's say if the person is an athlete and really wanting to dial in their performance, and they may say, all right, I'm lacking energy, I'm not recovering so well, and I probably need to get them to do a food diary, like a 3-4 day food diary, to see exactly what they're eating, calculate their macros. For example, like Emilie is pretty much carb based. I mean, being endurance, you'll probably be more carbs and fats as fuel. But strength-based athletes, I believe they might require a little bit more protein. So I might just do a little bit of a calculation to see where they're sitting, because sometimes you need to ascertain where the person's at on calorically. Because as Emilie shared earlier, a plant-based diet is not, although it's a lot more voluminous, but it's not as calorie dense. Because, for example, if we take a steak, steak might have be about 400 calories or 500-600 calories. But if you take the equivalent of spinach, for example, it's not going to fit in there. Yeah. So exactly, a large bag of spinach. Well, I would say 3 or 4 or 5, 6 maybe. But really to see where the person's at calorically and look at the nutrient density of foods, because there's certain foods I believe that will accelerate recovery, boost performance, things like chia seeds, which is great, things like ginger as well, turmeric. I mean, if we want to look at omega-3s, I mean, now there's ahi flour as well. Omega-3s, for example, someone has chronic inflammation, then we might look at an omega-3 supplement, an EPA, DHA, maybe from ahi flour or maybe from algae sources. If the person's wanting to increase their protein intake, we could look at more legumes, because legumes a great source of leucine, and leucine accelerates muscle protein synthesis as well. So maybe incorporating more legumes and stuff like that as well. And let's say if a person's wanting to prepare for a competition, let's say if a bodybuilder, they might want to hit 30% of calories in protein. that to have the same amount of calories to hit that protein goal with whole foods, you might consume 600 to 700 calories to get 30% of calories. But if you use a plant-based protein supplement, you actually hit your protein goal without having too much calories, because at the end of the day, if you're dropping down to 6 to 7% body fat, you need to drop your calories as well. So it really depends on the goals and where the person is at, and how deep they want to drive, and what their ultimate goal is. If it's for optimal health, if it's for longevity, then I would say a whole food plant-based SOS-free diet, salt, oil, and sugar-free. But we're looking at athletic performance. It really depends on the type of athlete it is to ascertain what the person needs. So in that sense, in a roundabout way, it really depends.
No, and I totally get that. I totally understand, because you're right, because people come from all different part of the phrase walks of life, where some people, they start off where they can only do a little bit at the beginning. I wonder if you've heard the story, for David Clark, who also, is an endurance athlete, and talks about his story going plant-based, where, I interviewed him, and his goal starting out was literally, trying to get 20 seconds on a treadmill, So you're right. Everyone comes from different areas. Well, if you don't mind, just because obviously this is where you came from, if we could go a little bit more on what we just talked about, how about someone that was like you? That was obviously you were in what people would say, phenomenal shape, as far as how you physically looked, bodybuilding. What did you do to transform? What was that? You were like, all right, I'm gonna take this out of my diet, my protein sources of meat. What did you put in so you could continue on with your passion for bodybuilding and just staying in shape?
Yeah, I think for me it was quite a journey as well, because I tried different things. Like Emilie, I went high protein, low carb, meaning I was having so much soy and tofu and legumes, and I was extremely gassy. So I tried. Emilie was complaining all the time. I was one of those. Yeah, and the thing was that I even tried raw as well, but I found
80-10-10 style.
80-10-10 style raw, just pretty much fruits, I would say.
Really unsatisfying.
Oh my goodness, I just felt like I just crave fats, really. So I think my nutrition really evolved, and I found out
I could do it for 2 years. So people are just built so different.
Yeah, I think people are very built. I know I need a lot more protein than Emilie does. So it's just a case of finding out. Because I know I read the book, I think the blood type diet, I think it was it. And apparently, I drew some inspiration from that back in my, non-vegan days.
From an observational perspective, it doesn't make sense. For example, they say that all people who are all blood types have to eat meat. They are absolute carnivores, as I'm an A, so I can be vegetarian. So people are like, oh, true, you're an A, so you're fine. Luke is an O, but we find that he needs more protein. Yeah. Our little girl is an O as well, like Luke, and we can see that she's naturally attracted to protein. So if she has vegetables and beans in front of her and fruits, she will zero in on the beans. Gotcha. So we kind of can see that there's some kind of correlation with the blood type just by observation, complete observation. So that's why everyone has different needs and everything. So me naturally is just more attracted towards carbohydrates.
So in terms of what I'm having right now, if you want to look at it, I think my macros, if we want to go into macro split, will probably about 60%. I mean, this is what I found work for me in terms of sustaining my energy levels, performance, maintaining lean muscle mass, because I train at least 6 to 7 times a week, and each time about 1 to 2 hours. And I CrossFit and gymnastics. So it's pretty high intensity stuff. But yeah, I think right now it's probably about 60% carbs, about 15% fats, roughly, and about 20-25% protein. And I found that I've kind of worked this out just through time, just through really eating intuitively, I would say. And And I find that pretty much if we want to look, a perfect meal for me, I would say would just be a grain bowl. For example, a grain bowl with like tonight we had some sauerkraut, and a legume sauce and lots of greens.
We use kamut tonight.
Yeah, we use kamut.
Kamut, yeah. I like to try new grains, but most of the time it comes down to brown rice.
Exactly.
Yep.
So I definitely have a legume sauce, and I think I instinctively. I mean, I've calculated this before, being a bodybuilder. I used to calculate my macros, but I'm sitting on, based on my level of training, based on my activity level, I'm meant to be sitting at about 3,500 calories. And I without even trying, I just did some calculations the other day. I was sitting spot on 3,472 calories. So I was just like, wow, I was pretty blown away. But I think I fill up, I would say, mainly firstly on carbs, because I think carbs people say carbs make you fat and carbs don't build muscle. But at the end of the day, when we look at every single cell in our body, muscle cells, it runs on glucose and glycogen. So people say, look, you can have so much carbs, you can stay lean because you're so active, and you can build muscle because you're so active. It's because I'm having a high, pretty much 60% and 70% carb diet. That's why I can perform so well. So carbs will be my first definitely macro that I'm looking at. Just pretty much I have a pretty high carb diet, moderate protein, generally low in fat, although I do with my fat, it really depends on, let's say the last time I was running Plantbased, which is a 21 km obstacle race, I shifted towards fats because after about 60 minutes, I think you go into fat, your body uses fats as a fuel source, as a secondary fuel source. So I started moving towards fats when I was training back then. But right now, that's what I'm on, and that's what I kind of advocate as well. So does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah. Well, and I love that. And if you don't mind, because a lot of times we hear the word fat, and people are going to get connotations. Give some examples, if you don't mind, maybe of quote some good fats. Like when you're talking about that switching to fats, what are some sources that you're going to for that? Because again, a lot of people, they're going to hear carb and protein. Most people can narrow down what that looks like to them.
Yeah.
Talk a little, if you just will, just briefly, just just the fats. What specifically was that you were eating to up your fats?
Anything whole sources, like Emilie was saying, natural butters, almond butters, peanut butters, natural peanut butter, not the Skippy kind, and also avocados, nuts and seeds. Sometimes. I remember when I was training for my Spartan race, I knew that I probably had before, so that I didn't bonk during my 20K run, for example. I knew I had to have about 400 plus calories in me, and that was the equivalent of roughly two bars. I think Cliff bars. They're not probably the most whole, but yeah, I just.
And it was still organic.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. So like a two whole kind of Cliff bars or kind of organic raw bars, which is pretty much dates, nuts and seeds, a little bit of coconut, stuff like that.
Like here we're in the tropics, so we have a lot of coconut products.
Yeah.
Like whole coconuts with coconut meat.
Yeah.
In it.
Whole fats in their whole state. So
Nice.
I think
use a little bit of oil here and there. Like I used to be very anti-oil, and then again, since giving birth, part of my recovery, I found that cooking vegetables with oil and everything were helping me digest them better.
Yep.
So I kind of like. Nothing is bad. Just with oil, it is a refined product. So to use in various.
I think the bottom line is we just want to be conscious of what you're consuming. I think sometimes we are in an environment where there's whole food plant-based. Oh well, it's not. It's low oil. Oh raw, that's not raw. And you start making the whole plant-based diet so confusing and quite inaccessible. It's just about finding what works for you. And if you're diseased, you're suffering from heart disease, you're about to die, SOS free immediately. But if just day-to-day living, I really think people shouldn't be so worried about this oil and refined oils. It's just about finding that balance, really.
Okay, gotcha. I like that. All right. Well, so we talked about all this. Let's just kind of transition. I'd love to know what some of your goals now for 2018. I mean, obviously, as everyone has heard, and I know from just kind of, knowing of you and researching and following you, you stay very involved, as we've heard in a lot of things. So what is 2018 for both of you? Kind of maybe what are goals you've set to advance? Because I know both of y'all are committed to the vision, and mission of advancing this information out to people. So what are some goals maybe y'all have?
Specific for me, really, right now is just to really plan towards the 2018 summit, because I think the whole plant-based athlete movement is kind of picking up momentum, and with I think from the ground up has just been released. I'm not sure whether it's been released at, and the game changes as well. So it's really amazing to see that scene rising, because we know the ethical side, the environmental side have been around for quite a while, and now top athletes from NBA athletes to tennis players to across the board, they're turning plant-based for athletic performance. So I mean, the Plantbased Summit's a big one, and definitely looking at for me and Emilie, really looking, because I've been doing a bit of global, like online global stuff, but I think Emilie and I want to start serving the local community in Singapore by running just possibly like boot camps and like boot camp / nutrition sessions, just to help and support the local plant-based community here as well. And with proceeds going to charities, so it could be going to the Vegetarian Society here or Sanctuary. So a little bit of, in that sense, community work. And what else? I think also I'm in the process of creating courses to help personal trainers understand plant-based nutrition. I mean, they don't need to be
vegan
themselves, but to know how to advocate a whole food plant-based diet to clients who are coming to them, vegetarian or vegan or plant curious clients.
Other than telling them that no, they cannot reach their goals if they go vegan or if they are vegan, because we hear a lot of people in the fitness industry telling their client to revert back to a meat eating diet because you cannot reach a goal. So just to make sure that I think they need to get some education on that part. And I work for a company that offers courses for personal trainers, so that's through that we can actually keep that advocacy on that side. For me, this year, so I came back. So I gave birth last March, and I went back to running probably 1 month after giving birth. And it was just, I did what my body felt like. I felt able to do it, so I started running as soon as I could. And, I jumped on a few races, and I was happy to beat my best marathon time last December at the Singapore Marathon. Yeah, I was really proud of myself. Only 9 months after giving birth, 8 months after giving birth.
Listen, everybody, it works. This stuff works.
It's not rocket science.
And it was with even less training because my coach was extremely careful. So my best time was 2 years ago, and then with less training and would be much more careful, I was able to beat my. So I was pretty happy about that. So I'm just riding on that wave. As Luke said, I have a 100K next month in New Zealand. It's called Tarawera, and it's a trail 100K. So just jumping there and trying my best. I've got another 100K planned in June. This will be a road 100K, because I'm trying to go and do a fast time for the 100K. I'd like to do it under 8 hours and a half. And my ultimate goal would be to qualify for the World Championships in the 100K distance. That's the ultimate goal. That would be at the end of the year. But I'm putting it out there. It's the first time that I talk about it to anyone else at my coach or Luke. So that would be absolutely amazing. If it's not this year, it will be in 2 years, because it's every 2 years. But I've put it on my vision board I went to the World Championships when I was in speed skating when I was younger, and I want to go back again on an international scene. So yeah, that's the goal for this year.
That is
and also
awesome.
Be parents to our little.
Yes.
That's the biggest one.
Obviously, yes. Just be a good parent and be a good example to her. She's been coming to races. She's been sitting through exercise science lectures as well.
And she's watching me. Like my dad will bring her out when I'm doing like my calisthenics and gymnastic stuff. So hopefully, when she's of a certain age, she might do her own little thing and be inspired to get active. But so far, I think we've got a pretty active baby. So we'll see what happens.
Well, I'd say, and especially with the knowledge you two have and what she's going to be raised up in, I mean, her DNA is probably going to be studied like forever, starting like an entire new movement of ultra athletes,
Yeah.
Slash CrossFitter.
Yeah. Well, this is awesome. Well, look, I mean, I could talk to y'all for hours. I mean, y'all have so much knowledge and information that you bring. I mean, what in wrapping up? Anything else you want to really get out there, or how people find you? I mean, of course, I'll put everything in show notes, but like the best way maybe people can follow you, get more information.
Yep, I think our main Facebook, Live Green, Live Lean.
Instagram. Oh yes, so Live Green, Live Lean on Facebook. My Instagram is at Emilie Endurance Runner. I put like I'm very free on that. I put like pictures of my cat, pictures of my baby, but I also put pictures of training, pictures of the food that I cook, because I got a few cooking certifications as well to add to the thing. I love cooking, so I like to put pictures of my food, obviously, because it's Instagram. So I'd say that's the best way to connect with me on there. Facebook as well, Emilie Tan, and our Live Green, Live Lean page.
Yeah, and for me, Instagram, like I'm in the process of changing Live Green, Live Lean, my personal one, which is Luke T Plant Fit, and I also have another Instagram handle, which is Plant Fit Movement, which is what Evolved Generation evolved from. So now it's Plant Fit Movement. On Facebook, Live Green, Live Lean on Facebook, and I think really just my personal profile, Luke Tan. It's probably where I'm probably most active on. I would say.
Gotcha.
All channels, yeah.
Well, that is awesome. I mean, thanks so much, you two, for putting this time out here for all you do, and I can't wait to talk to y'all again. I know we will all be staying in touch. It's what you two are doing to help continue to put knowledge and information out there to people is phenomenal.
Perfect. Thank you for the opportunity, Mike.
Well, thanks so much, and y'all have a great rest of the day. Take care.
For sure. Take care.
Thanks, you too. All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
All right, Luke and Emilie, thank you so much for coming on the Vegan Tour Guide podcast and for sharing. Loved, all the knowledge that you brought, because that's, I get asked that all the time by people, give me some specifics on what to do. And I love it. Luke broke it down. Luke broke down, how he's training 6-7 times per week. And for him, what he found, what works is, he's got, a mix, 60% carb, 20% protein, 20% fat. And so that's something people can keep in mind. He dropped information, like where's he getting a lot of his fat from? Like your almond butter, nuts and seeds, avocado. Then he's using things, bringing, he's finding his, legume sources, bringing like some grain bowls, some brown rice and stuff like that. And so, you get an insight as to what somebody like you, Luke, here he is, bodybuilder, competitive CrossFit athlete. You'll see on the website, you'll see a lot of lists, the laundry list of accomplishments for both of them. And then, of course, Emilie talking about, what she does and how she gets in shape for especially these ultra, marathons, like I told you at the very beginning. And, you heard her talk about how soon after having their baby, she's going to do an ultra marathon. That was just phenomenal. But at the same time, it lends credence to, the recovery. And those of you that have listened to this show multiple times have heard other people come on, especially other endurance athletes. You've heard this said before that, recovery, is one of the biggest things people notice out of the gate when they switch over to plant-based. They can recover faster, recover better, recover easier. and that, in doing so allows them to prepare in a faster manner. I mean, look at the time frame Emily's talking about from going, having a child to an ultra marathon. That is just mind-boggling. But she's done it, and so that's awesome. And they both are such testaments to what can be done on this plant-based diet. So I thank them so much for both coming on and sharing. I love, Luke talked a little bit about his book. And so I've got the link in the podcast for y'all. I love it. Awaken Alive, harness your physical and mental potential through a plant-based lifestyle. That is Luke's book. Go check it out. Again, I got the link right on the website, vegantourguide.com there with this podcast, to where you can go straight to Amazon and buy the book. And, you see Robert Cheek and some other people give him great ringing endorsements. So you got to check that out. Of course, you heard some of the things that, kind of move them, like the movie Earthlings. Earthlings is one, if you haven't watched it yet, you got to watch it. And more importantly, maybe send it on to some people that are maybe on the fence, or just kind of maybe themselves wondering, hey, what impact could I have, or should I do this? So go check that out. Hey, everybody, just want to thank you again for tuning in and helping spread the word. Love to hear from you. Drop me an email, vegantourguide@gmail.com. All right. Always want to say thank you as well to the sponsor today, Ahi Flour. Love having Ahi Flour. I interviewed them early on one of the episodes, and you heard a lot about that great product. So go check out ahiflour.com. Again, great people doing great things over there. So, everybody, thank you so much. Thanks for helping spread the word. And until next time, everybody, live pure vegan.